On this edition of What's in a Game, it is a special episode because Grace and I are in Denver in person to celebrate us getting to 300 subs. So thank you to everyone who subbed. And if you haven't and you're watching this, please consider subscribing and liking the video right now because it really helps us out. And we will talk about the Young Nuggets in their first Summer League game, the good and bad about that because there was definitely some bad. We will get into that. And then we'll talk about Jamal and Jokic at the Olympics and their friendly games that they had. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to What's in a Game. I'm Will Jones with my co-host in person, Grace Jean. How you doing, Grace? Thanks for coming to Denver.
Hey, Will. No, it's been great. I am visiting Denver this week, and it's been really fun. I saw that you had posted online that you had
Oh,
intel
yeah.
about somebody coming to Denver, and you were really worried about backlash.
Yeah, I tweeted I have intel, which is probably the worst word to use, but I also wanted people to think it was like Russell Westbrook
Yeah, yeah,
as well as you, but I didn't know that it was gonna blow up as much as it did because people were
yeah.
really curious and thought I had some kind of information.
Will didn't think
Um,
that despite having lots and lots of followers and people hungry for off-season news, that a tweet about
I know.
Intel and someone coming to Denver would blow up.
I don't have that many followers, but
You have a lot more than I do.
yeah, I've never reported on anything Nuggets. I'm
Yeah,
just a personality on Twitter. So
I just exist
the
here.
only actual news I've ever reported was that I had a friend who his wife worked at a hospital. She's like a doctor, and she saw Kelly Olynyk
Oh yeah,
at
I
the
remember
hospital.
that.
And I was like, please go up to him and say and
You
put
should
in a
come
good
to
word for the
Denver.
Nuggets. That's
You
the
should request a
only
trade to
that's the
Denver.
only thing I've ever tried to get in on, but otherwise I had got nothing. But yeah, it's been awesome having you in Denver. You are on DNVR podcast,
That's right.
which is really fun. I'm glad that you've been meeting people in Denver and going and doing fun things. Is there anything you want to say about Denver? Anything that surprised you or that you?
Um, Not that surprised me. Like I've been to Denver before, but I hadn't spent much time in the city. Like for the people wondering, like we are celebrating 300 subs, but I'm not here to do that.
Yeah,
Kind of cat sitting for a friend right now, and it's my first time actually getting to experience Denver itself. Like I had visited to, visit Colorado Springs before, things like that. But I really love the Denver Zoo. Like,
yeah.
I think that's actually like my favorite thing that I've done here. Although, like, Will and his girlfriend took me and my fiance, who's also here in Denver with me, to film on the rocks at Red Rocks. That was my first time there. There are lots of stairs, people. So, like, all of that stuff that the Nuggets do in preseason, that's like serious, serious training. Lots of stairs, lots of altitude, but it was really fun watching the movie at that amphitheater for sure. And I just love mountains.
Oh yeah,
Like I live in California, but I'm from Florida, and I'm always in awe of the different mountainscapes here out west. And Denver definitely has a lot of them.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're used to the ocean, which Colorado
Yes.
is severely lacking in.
Yeah, lacking in oceans for sure.
Yeah, and moisture in the air in general. So
Yes.
that's been always an adjustment for people coming to Denver altitude and the dryness. But we did run up and down the stairs of Red Rocks, up and
I don't
down,
know about
just
running.
like
I was just trying
Jokic
to keep
and
up with
the boys.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I'm glad you went to the zoo. I wasn't sure whether to recommend that because, it almost sounds like too cliche or something, but it actually is a cool zoo and it's like something fun to do
It's
in
really
Denver.
great. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yep.
And I got to see lions
Mm-hmm.
and tigers, and I might go back later this week for the bears.
Whoa, good reference.
Yeah.
Because we did go to the Wizard
That
of
was like
Oz.
right off the top of my head. Oh yeah, that is from Wizard of
I thought
Oz.
that's why you were doing it.
Yeah. We saw Wizard of Oz at Film on the Rocks.
At
That
Film on
was
the Rocks.
very fun. Actually, Will and I just got back from watching Legally Blonde the musical
Yeah, we
with
went to Legally
Tess
Blonde.
and a bunch of your friends, and everyone was wearing pink. And you guys were all like, "Oh my gosh, Grace, you're dressed like perfectly for this." And
Yeah.
like, I didn't even think about the
I
pink
can't believe
reference.
that you showed up
I
in
just like was like, "Oh, I need to wear like clothes that are suitable for the theater or whatever." for this because it was kind of a last minute thing, and this is kind of my go-to. It's a very
Nice.
versatile dress,
That's
I
true.
think. Like it can be more like springy and whatever, but if I wear like the right shoes, sometimes it could be a little bit more fancy.
Yeah,
But
you can go to like a show and then get on a podcast and it still
yeah,
works. So yeah.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, but being on DNVR was awesome. That was another like totally kind of random thing. It was really cool of Adam to invite me on to talk about the summer league things, and excited to dig into some of those details in our show as well. Now that we've actually seen some of the Nuggets at summer league,
Yeah.
but yeah, everyone has just been really great. I got to meet Ryan Blackburn. Everyone has been like super nice to me in the Nuggets community, and that's something that I was really like worried about when like you
Whoa.
first approached me about the
Oh,
podcast,
right.
because I'm so new to the fandom. I just got into the team like a little over a year ago, and I know that it's a very like dedicated fan base because the people
Yeah.
that have been attached to the Nuggets for many years went through a lot with that team, like not just of them being bad, but like the injuries and like all of that, and then watching everybody sort of have that emotional release of like finally getting to the mountaintop, pun intended, with the championship last year. It was not like I wasn't scared, but I didn't want to feel like I was like like just kind of stepping into something not where I didn't belong, but maybe that I was a poser.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Essentially, I
yeah.
don't have a better word for it. And I was like bandwagoning and all that, and like I obviously am because I got into the team because they were awesome to me. But I love this team, and the fan base has been really awesome. So I'm really excited to be here to celebrate 300 subs with you. And I don't want to cry, so I'm gonna stop talking
Whoa,
now.
emotion from Grace there. No, that's awesome. It's been cool because Adam said on DNVR that you're a welcome new personality in the community, and everyone
Oh
is
my god, he
very.
said that. I like blocked that whole thing out.
Yeah, he did. He said
I've
it.
like blacked it out because I was so nervous.
No, yeah, he said it on the show. I think it was towards the end of the show. They were thanking you, and they were like,
Oh, that's so
he
nice
was
of
saying like
him.
you're a good like addition to the community, and like I'm pretty sure everyone feels like that because you have such insight, and everyone has recognized that. And um, thankfully, you're on a podcast with me.
Yes.
It is our podcast, so that was awesome to see, and it's so cool that you finally got to Denver. Although I am sad there's no Nuggets game for you to actually go
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
But someday you have seen the Nuggets in person. You saw them in
I
Orlando
have.
playing
I
the Magic.
did see them in Orlando. I would love to go to a game at Ball Arena one day, maybe next season. I actually was talking to my friend who's a Warriors fan, and we saw that the Warriors are in the Nuggets IST group, and we'll
Oh,
talk about the IST group just briefly because we kind of got the group of death.
oh, dang.
We're in West Group B, I believe, and that is the Nuggets, the Mavs, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and the Warriors. So the Warriors are like the worst team
Yeah,
there, and
I
they
was
have
gonna
Steph
say,
Curry
are they actually the worst team?
on them.
They're
I
not fully formed,
Yeah,
so
no,
yeah.
that's true, and they lost Clay this summer, and but I think they're gonna be maybe an overall better team next year. We're gonna see. Maybe they're gonna be the same, but it's a really tough group. I will say that we avoided the specific teams that I didn't want the Nuggets to have in their groups, which were specifically the Spurs and the Rockets. The Rockets because we had them in our IST group last year. And then it ended up being that we had to play the Rockets like 4 times last year just because of scheduling and whatever. And that was supposed to be like free wins, and then it wasn't free wins. So I was
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
I don't want to deal with that team. Shangun takes the Jokic matchup personally, and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna be Dirk Nowitzki
Right.
against Jokic. And I'm like, I just don't want to deal with that. And Wemby also takes the Jokic matchup personally, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the France-Serbia exhibition game. But I didn't want those teams in our group. We didn't get them, but we got basically the otherwise toughest groupings that there could have been. No Thunder, no Wolves because the grouping, the seeding works out that way with how they draw the team pools. But yeah, that was just my little spiel on our IST group. But how do you feel about it?
It's tough. I think the Grizzlies are going to be good again with Jaw. So that's going to be tough.
And Zach Edey's starting to look like he's a real player. He's kind of crushing it in Summer League right now.
I know. I mean, yeah. I mean, the only question really is that he's not like a, over the top shot. Yeah, he's not a shooter. He's not like a 3-point shooter.
Not that they needed that at that position. They needed somebody to rebound.
Yeah, which is going to help. And he's a big body and a good screener. As Matt Brooks and them were saying, they loved, everyone at the Nuggets practice was talking about Edey's screening. So if Nuggets media is talking about it, it's legit. Otherwise, yeah, the Warriors might be the worst, but it's still Steph. So in one game, like, he can light you up if he's feeling like it.
And now we don't have KCP anymore, our Steph stopper.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
The Warriors are always a unique challenge because of the way that they play. And you can really never count them out of a single game. Like even last year, as they struggled through the season, they had these stretches where they would go on, those 2017, like those Dynasty Warriors-esque runs on, like, they could do that to any team in the association on any given night.
Yeah.
It's just tough for them to sustain it. So it's definitely, I think we have the group of death. Like, I think, who is it? Team Canada has the group of death in the Olympics. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to our Olympic preview episodes later down the line, but they have a really tough grouping in the Olympics. I think the Nuggets have the group of death in the IST. And it's more like, well, if we had an easier group, I would kind of expect the Nuggets to come out of it, but then there'd be like random like Spurs or Rockets that kind of make it difficult. With this group, it's like, hey, try your best. If you come out of it, great. If not, it was a really tough group. So
at least we don't have the Wolves or the Thunder.
Well, yes, that's true.
That's the only upside.
Yeah.
Really. But that's a good collection. It's a good collection of like pretty good teams.
Yeah. Any of those teams could be playoff teams.
Yeah.
Like top 6 teams.
And any of those teams could come out like winning that group. Like, because the IST is weird. I mean, we saw it last year not really knowing what to expect. And to like actually put stock in winning it is, it wasn't just like the Nuggets are the best team, so they should come out. It's like you have kind of the schedule's a little bit weird, and it's single games sometimes, and like the regular season context affects it. So like someone might be resting that night or something, and they don't really care.
People mostly avoided rest on the IST nights. Right. That was a thing I remember from early last season, is that a lot of people, at least the like diehard, very online fans, were like excited because the games were competitive for the most part when it wasn't involving like a bad team, because there were a lot of blowouts, especially in the East. But people weren't resting, and they scheduled everything so that no games were back-to-backs for either team that was playing in an IST game that night. So that's something, right? Eventually we'll get the full NBA schedule and see if they're able to maintain that this year. I know it caused some like challenges, let's say, for the schedule makers last year. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to work around those things this year and maintain, those things that are there to like preserve the competitiveness of these games. The other big major like news item related to that is that the NBA inked their new media deal with all their new media partners, and NBC is joining the tent of NBA media partners, and Amazon is also joining the tent, and TNT/Discovery are out. So this will start not next season, but in the 25-26 season. But starting then, Amazon is going to have the IST. So that is just something to look out for when it comes to accessing those particular games. Like you'll probably be able to get them on Prime Video. All these companies are eventually going to make you like buy a sports package to get all this stuff anyway. But
or like the price is just going to go up in general.
Yeah.
And then it's going to go to the players. As you're going to see, they're going to be making $80 million every season now.
The top players will be.
All of them will be, because the salary floor of
but they're not all going to be making $80 million, Will.
Yes, well...
we here are pro-labor.
They won't, because they will be taking pay cuts.
The stars.
Even everyone at the top.
Well, yeah.
They're going to be Brunson, doing the
Brunson pills?
Brunson pill, and they're gonna
They're
take
like, oh yeah, we're
discounts.
all about competition. Someone online was saying that they were talking about when does it get to a point where the guys at the top are making so much money that they start taking pay cuts because there are just like other reasons too. And with Brunson, it's like
Yeah.
helping the Knicks stay out of the second apron, keeping the team together / competitive. But it's also he gets to play with all his Villanova Wildcats, except Colin Gillespie because he's a son right now. And he just gets to play with his friends
It's
too.
true.
At least for now. We'll see if the Knicks keep their end of that bargain. But
You could do a whole like show on that because the way
yeah,
that these players live their lives and the expenses and stuff, I'm sure they don't want to take massive pay cuts. They got a lot to be
no,
paying
no.
for.
And like, why
Uh,
would you? You don't become a billionaire by leaving money on the table.
yeah. Let's move to Summer League.
Let's talk about it.
I'm wearing my Nug Life shirt made by Alec Gwynn. Shout out to you because DaRon Holmes tore his Achilles tendon in the first Summer League game against the Clippers in the fourth quarter, and it was pretty heartbreaking to say the least. And I think the first point we should talk about with it is just that it just sucks for him.
Yeah.
Like I know fans are quick to be like, "Well, how does this affect the team?" I know like everyone probably feels bad for him. I'm not calling anyone out, but it's just worth stating again that it's just like terrible for a player who has so much promise. And he was kind of considered a steal. Like he's a good fit for the Nuggets, but there are people who are really excited about him as a player. And it's not going to derail his career. It's still going to be good. I hope. I mean, the Achilles is a people would say it's like it's one of the worst injuries and tough to come back from because it can like limit your burst and all that. But he's still so young.
He's so young. He's
So
21, I think, right?
yeah. So I think it'll be okay. And like even Kevin Durant, you can argue about how he's looked since the Achilles, but it's not like he's unplayable. He's still an elite player.
Yeah, Kevin Durant is not unplayable.
Yeah.
Understatement.
He doesn't have to go out of the league because of this injury. And I think there are people talking about like the advancements with that and like physical therapy and rehab. So I'm not like worried about him. It
really
yeah.
sucks. I
Yeah.
mean, he's making his NBA debut in summer league. He doesn't even get through a full game. He does get hurt in the fourth quarter, like you say. And, you know, like watching this unfold live because you didn't get to watch the game live, right? Watching everyone's like reactions online, we got to see like no one knew exactly what was going on because at first they were like Achilles tightness and then they were like looking at it and all of that. But some of the first, like hints at, yeah, it's a serious
bad.
thing. It's probably a torn Achilles. We got actually came from his dad on Twitter who was just
Whoa.
like FML at one point. And then today he actually wrote a really nice message that was just thanking everybody that since then had written well wishes and everything and how they're moving on to, the next step, which is like the road to rehabilitation and trying to come back, which is, really positive, but it's really tough for just to think about just those moments for him and for his family, just processing that in real time while your NBA debut game is still going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just brutal.
And, let's talk about some of what we did see from his game.
Yeah.
Right?
His 3-point shot was so beautiful.
It was pure. Well, I don't know if the shot itself was beautiful, but like it kept going in. So his shot form has been compared to Al Horford's.
Yeah.
Wide base. It was pretty consistent, which is good, especially for a big man that you don't necessarily expect to be like a high volume shooter. You want their form to be consistent so that whenever they do get those looks, they're able to at least take them. And he was knocking him down. A lot of just punishing overhelp and that kind of thing. And, I don't know the full, road to rehab from an Achilles tear, but at some point he's going to be able to work more on skill things even before he's allowed to start any kind of like contact-based play or anything like that. Lots of guys have, dealt with both this injury and other injuries that take them out for large stretches, and then they come back with just a different perspective on the game. We saw this just last year with Chet Holmgren, who missed his entire his rookie season with the Liz Frank thing with his foot. So I'm not very different recovery and rehab process, but the point is just like being around the team, getting to take everything in that is the NBA slowly may end up being a blessing in a really ugly disguise.
Yeah. that's the silver lining, is that he can learn from Jokic probably. Like he'll be sitting on the bench, people will be
Hey,
pointing out like, "Hey, notice how this guy does this," or
yeah.
he'll see like the deficiencies of the bench too, and
How can
hopefully,
I
yeah,
help
and
when I'm able to
yeah, and
physically?
envision like holes that he could fill, stuff like that. That's exciting. But I just like am so impatient to watch him play because I was so
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
that it's just such a drag. And I know it's maybe marginal because we didn't even know how much of a contributor he was going to be,
yeah.
but the potential was so high that I was super excited. So you just hope that he learns a lot and comes back strong, and having like the knowledge under his belt gives him more success to like put it into practice next season. So
Right.
but yeah, his three looked good. He looked really quick too. Like he
Yeah, he
looked
did. I liked
fast.
I liked the way he looked on defense. I think he was maybe the only positive defender in the summer league starting lineup. We'll talk about everyone else a little bit later, but he was really active in the passing lanes, really active on the ball. He got a steal and then uh like a deflection steal, and then like Julian got him this really cool dunk in transition, that sort of thing. You were
Yeah,
just like, man,
yeah,
that's really, it's
yeah,
like bigger Peyton. Imagine the two of them on the floor at the same time, like the kind of havoc that they could wreak. And
yeah.
we'll have to wait to see it, but at this point, I'm just like wishing him just full recovery. I hope and I expect the team to just embrace him in like all of the ways, like
Hmm.
literally and everything else, right? And I'm glad that he's got like security right now. Just to answer like for the people that have specific questions about how this affects like the
Yeah,
salary side of the team. So technically the team is allowed to apply for a disabled player exception that would give them something like $1.5 million to spend on another player, which is less than the vet minimum. So it doesn't really mean anything.
yeah,
And it wouldn't give us an extra roster spot. So in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really impact anything about what we could do with the roster. This is something that the team also experienced last season when we had Vlatko out with the ACL tear.
yeah,
So that's just, how things are. Just wanted to clear that up for anybody that had that specific question. But I just like wish him just a full recovery, and I hope that, this isn't too big of an emotional blow, especially like with his family around him and everything like that.
yeah. Well, he'll have time to like get through all the emotions of that, and he'll have Jamal there, who went through a really tough ACL. He'll have
Vlatko.
Vlatko,
Yeah.
so that's part of the
And
frustration.
Dario.
Oh yeah, and
We've
Dario.
got a lot of guys. We have Mac, MPJ, Mike with his with
Back.
his back issues
Yeah.
too.
There needs to be like a meme of the Nuggets where they're like all
They're all
bandaged
injured.
up.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to like, I mean, I guess it's good to like kind of make fun of it because
I mean, that's
it
all you
sucks
can do when it comes
to,
to Nug
yeah,
life, right?
Nug life. In totality, though, it's like all the injuries piled up. Like people were adding it up and saying, like, damn, like a season-ending injury in every season in the last 3 seasons or whatever it was. And yeah, it's true, but we did win a championship with good
And not
health
everybody does
luck.
that.
Um, yeah, not everybody does that. So, but yeah, it just goes back to the same thing we've been talking about, where it's like we're trying to maximize Jokic, and you don't want these injuries to derail everything that he could
Right.
accomplish. But let's talk about some of the specifics of like him and this injury and what that means for other players and the team overall, because this opens up things for Vlatko, obviously. Last episode, we had talked about how we had so many players in the front court that we were unsure even of what the pecking order is going to be. Now he goes out, and we need more bodies now all of a sudden, which is kind of ironic.
That's really funny. I
Um,
do think that like when I brought that up last episode, I maybe discounted the subgroups within our front court depth. And
mhm.
DaRon was definitely in the subgroup that was like he adds athleticism to that front court.
Yeah,
And I guess like a fully healthy Vlatko could be part of that part of the Venn diagram, and then Zeke Naji also, right? Whereas you have like skill when it comes to Vlatko's there too, Dario and Hunter Tyson. But in terms of that athleticism, especially as a complement to those skill guys, I think it will be missed. It doesn't really change what the front court looks like, at least compared to last year. Like I still think like on the whole, because we got Dario, our front court looks
oh
better
right.
than it did last year. It would have been, in my opinion, even better if we'd had DaRon there. But just to, complement that, especially defensively. But, next man up.
I really, there's no guarantee he was going to play in the playoffs, which I think is probably the
Yeah.
biggest.
Yeah.
That's like the best case scenario is he's good enough to play in the playoffs. We can use him in maybe some double big lineups that we're struggling with. He's just another option there. And now there's less options. And I was excited to see him operate offense with the bench, but Dario still brings that.
Yeah.
And I think they would play a similar style. Like, let's say they weren't playing together and he comes in, I think he would try to play a similar-ish style that's spacing the floor and passing, maybe in different ways and from different spots on the floor. But
I think that he'd probably, especially the first year, not have as much on-ball responsibility.
Right. But like I could
especially
see him,
with the shot looking as good as it does. Like, okay, we could use you as a spacer and a screen and dive man and have Dario spacing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But less so like using DaRon as a hub for large stretches of the season.
Right.
But it would have been a nice option to have for sure. And it is a loss, but I don't think that this like hobbles the team substantially or anything like that.
Because let's be honest, like rookies often kind of like they can surprise you and have a bunch in there.
They shouldn't rely on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the time, rookies, even who are contributing in a specific way or like a specific skill.
Right.
And so like the idea that DaRon would be, offering playmaking and shooting and defense and like all these things in the first year that we're all excited about and know that he has potential to do those things, that might have not been the reality of the season were he healthy. So it's hard to evaluate. And I don't know if this makes it easier to evaluate the bench because it's like you'll see a clear weakness and the weakness will be like, oh, you need a DaRon.
But it's the same, like we've been able to, I don't think we're worried about being able to evaluate the bench. Like we know what's wrong with the bench. We need to like fix it and we're not going to be able to fix it. Yeah, exactly. The problem with the non-Jokic minutes is that there's no Jokic.
Yes. There needs to be two of him, as he joked.
Anyway, we are definitely wishing DaRon just like the best, and we wish his family the best as well. This is going to be a really tough time for everybody around him, and I just hope they get as much support as they possibly can.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, sadly, the Nuggets are used to this situation. So, but let's talk about someone who we do have hopes for still and isn't a rookie. It's his second season. Julian Strawther had a interesting game. There's different ways you could look at it. He was 3 of 10 from 3, 7 of 19 from overall, I believe, and 25 points. 8 of 10 from the free throw line. And
hey, over a point per shot, man.
Yeah. Like I didn't watch the game live, like you said, and I watched like the highlights, and of course they put in all the best plays, and so I'm seeing Julian like these amazing plays back to back, and I'm like, whoa, he does look pretty good. But then, you look at the stats, definitely missed some shots. It wasn't like it was like a really amazing game. You had said on DNVR that you wanted him to look like he didn't belong there because he was so good. Like he was, NBA caliber player, no questions asked. Do you think he met that bar, or how would you evaluate the game that he had?
So, I mean, I already thought that Julian looked like an NBA caliber player, but I wanted him to look so good in Summer League that you don't want him playing more than 2 games.
Yeah, get him
out of there. I don't think that he quite passed that threshold, but I do think he looked pretty good. In terms of the struggles, they had him in a different role than he would probably be most of the time with the team because they were explicitly trying to work to expand his game. And that meant he was doing lots of dribbling. And whenever he was facing somebody up that was like even mildly pesky on the ball, he was turning it over, which was not fun. He had 3 turnovers, which wasn't terrible, but it was a 1 to 3 assist to turnover ratio. We'll talk about that too. He did try a couple of pretty like wild passes in my opinion. And I think it's mostly like, okay, there was a little bit too much on the ball because he's not a passer, so he doesn't know quite how much force to put on the ball to get it exactly the distance that it wants to get. But he had the right ideas. He's trying to work on his playmaking. He's trying to work on his defense. It's something that they talked about in the Summer League mini camp last week. He talked about him being 3 of 10 from 3. It's funny because I felt like he missed the easy ones and then made the hard ones
Yeah, like the
because
cross-up dribble ISOs that he's just jacking up, he makes
exactly. And like the catch and shoot still looked a little rushed. It was interesting to hear him talk about how the team struggled as a whole. The Nuggets did not win that summer league game against the Clippers. Summer
But they
league
were like
team.
right in it kind of up
Yeah,
until
no,
the end.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. But the point is that they're talking about in the post game, they're talking about the loss and like evaluate the team. How'd you guys do and all that? And he said that they still looked rushed on offense, and that was something that they talked about in particular during summer league training camp, effectively last week. And it was interesting to see him, Hunter, and Jalen Pickett all have that same problem, even though they were second year players. And it was a problem that had clearly persisted through training camp because they talked about it then. And it was another one that Julian talked about, I think, at halftime of this game because they went down at half. And they had like a little like mini media session with him there and in the post game. So that's something that I'd like to investigate a little bit further at some point if that just kind of keeps persisting, because what you want to see from second year players is at the very least the game has slowed down for them. Everyone talks
Right.
about that, right? You don't want him to look like rushed. I do think that there were a lot of great things, like you said. The pull-up ISO threes from Julian were just money.
Yeah.
At one point, it was like there was a stretch where the offense just looked really rough in terms of process, and a Julian Strawther pull-up ISO three was like the best
What they
offense that they
needed.
could get, actually. So that was encouraging because I was wondering about his ability as a pull-up threat, because I think being a threat to rise up and shoot over somebody makes it easier for you to bend the defense if you're deciding to operate in the pick and roll, which is something that the team would like him to be able to do to some degree next year. Malone talked about that last week.
Yeah.
You talked about him getting downhill a lot, right?
Yeah. He I don't know what he was, what, 4 of 9
4
from
of 9 from
inside.
2, yeah.
Yeah, in the
Some
inside the
floaters, some
some
layups,
floaters,
some
some of them.
tough, like rough looking misses.
Yeah, like
But
he drew some contact, got a lot of fouls. Some of them he didn't get calls on, and they were rebounded and like put back up, which is cool. Like
yes,
just like him
yeah.
getting it.
Just being aggressive and like
Yeah.
attacking the defense.
I thought he looked pretty like physical, like even
Yes.
just like on the perimeter driving, like bumping into a guy and like using his shoulder. He looked like pretty like strong, and he's like a bigger guy. Like
He's
it's not
sick.
like
He's like
yeah.
he looks like a legit 6'7" to me.
Yeah, so I liked seeing how physical he was, which makes sense because like you're practicing in the NBA. I know he had injuries, but he's got real reps. He's practicing with real dudes, and it's like that level of comfortability is good. But like I do agree that he looks like not fully slowed down, and like
Right.
and that is gonna take time if he's
Right.
like trying some different stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like the number one option on this team for offense.
Right, on this summer league team.
Which is
At
kinda
one
funny.
point, because of his pull-up ISO game, the Clippers were like blitzing him. And one of the things I would like him to do better is find his teammates. He did say that he wanted to work on his playmaking. But, you know, some of these turnovers were happening, and I think he would hold on to the ball a little bit too long. He's not somebody that I necessarily need to be able to deliver like the kill pass that like
Yeah.
immediately punishes the defense. Sometimes you need to just give the ball up and let that person make the play. So
Yeah.
that's definitely something that he can work on. But all in all, I was impressed with the versatility of how he scored. And like you said, the physicality, the aggression. That's something we saw from him. We've talked about how he's a lot better at drawing fouls than we thought. And it's just from him just being really aggressive. And he catches defenders off guard. And he is this bigger player coming from the perimeter that is known as a shooter. So he really, just usually catches the defense off guard and is really aggressive going downhill. He has this little hezzy like that he likes to go to, and the rhythm of it is a little bit weird, where like the hesitation is like a real hesitation. So the defender almost like is like, okay, I got him, like he's about to give up the ball, and then Julian like
Yeah.
charges forward. I'd like his finishing at the rim to get a little bit better for sure. But my comp of this sort of like reckless summer league game from Julian is actually 2022 Jordan Poole. Is that
Oh,
a
man.
fair comp?
I think it's pretty fair. Like
Yeah.
we're not taking it like super literally, but it's
Yeah, I
fair.
mean, Jordan Poole's a better ball handler, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
And I think he's a better playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
he hasn't shown that when he's at the Wizards. But again, this is 2022 Jordan Poole.
But it's like, yeah, it's there's different like little nuances with the comparison where it's like he could be focal point of an offense like through a whole game, and that's for better or worse, obviously, because the swings are pretty high and low.
Exactly.
But yeah, like the 3-point potential explosions there, but sometimes it's not always there, and maybe not the best decision making all the time or simple reads. But Jordan Poole's played with Hall of Famers, and Steve Kerr is a pretty good coach. Mike Malone's a good coach too. There's Hall of Famers on the Nuggets, so he's just younger. He's going to need time to develop those skills and become confident. I would love him to have the confidence of Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I would like that too. And he'll have a smaller role, and I feel like perhaps Julian is less volatile in terms of like knowing his place. Not on a possession by possession basis, but I don't think that Julian's ever going to be like, I don't think I'm getting enough reps, or not that was necessarily Jordan Poole's problem, but Jordan Poole was given so much responsibility so early on. He was basically like Steph when Steph was off the floor, and also like had to be that secondary guy when Steph was on the floor. Whereas Julian is like, you're our sixth man. Like, that's what you do. You play off of Jokic. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And ideally we can kind of like keep him in that like mindset, and that would kind of assuage some of the secondary problems that would come from having a Jordan Poole on your team.
He's definitely less destructive than Jordan Poole.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, he was really aggressive in this game. Like, I thought he was going to hurt someone else or himself the way he was like launching to the rim.
Well, we'll see. He hasn't had enough like NBA games to really show what side he's going to swing on. But I was looking kind of for like glimpses of what we want from him.
Yeah.
It wasn't maybe there the entire game, and he was playing kind of a different role than maybe he'll be playing in the regular season.
Absolutely. He's not going to be like the dude on the floor.
What if
even in our like atrocious bench unit, I think our bench unit is better than our summer league
even
team.
With Saric, he's an option probably above Julian on offense on the bench.
Yeah.
Potentially. Just because
Saric is going to have guaranteed minutes. Yeah. I don't know if Julian
I guess
will.
That's true. In my mind, I'm clocking that he will have
he
guaranteed minutes.
probably will.
But who knows? But I thought like the glimpses that he did show is promising, because if he just flashes that even on the bench every once in a while and just slowly builds it up and stays healthy, I have a pretty positive projection of him. But we'll see how the rest of the summer league is. I hope each game looks better. The defense, though, maybe wasn't the best.
Yeah, the on-ball defense needs some work. I'm still, like, not... He's, like, going to be... He and Sarge are going to be the worst defenders in our second year.
Yeah.
I'm just not as worried about it. I think the on-ball defense is, like, okay enough.
Yeah.
And he has to still keep working on it, but I'm never going to want him as, like, our primary point of attack defender, for example.
Yeah.
But if he's taking on, like, second options, whatever. Even in this game, like, the other team definitely had other targets on the floor.
Should we say his name
defense?
Yeah, well, we'll just quickly on Julian's defense before we go to other people. Like, he can be a playmaker, like we saw in the season. So, like, because he's, like, long and athletic enough that he can do stuff. And when he's got a
smaller offensive role, he can remain even more engaged on defense, which is playing passing lanes. Did they credit him? They didn't credit him with a block, but he definitely blocked a three-point shot in this game. He closed out on one of the Clippers shooting from above the break. That person did a sidestep, and they missed their three, but it was such a far, like, I think it was, like, so far short. I'm pretty sure Julian got a hand on it after, like, he was able to recover after the initial closeout and block that shot. And he's, again, 6'7" with, I believe, a 7-foot wingspan, at least. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just use those tools.
Yeah. And then there was another play we were talking about where he was just maybe out of position. Like, him and Hunter kind of seemed like they were guarding the same person or something. I don't know, miscommunication. Both of them had plays where they were kind of in the wrong spot.
Okay.
Either overhelping or something, and then they had to close out it was the same corner on the left corner. Guy was wide open, they're closing out, and on Julian's, he wasn't like close to getting to the shot. He was open and took it. And then on Hunter, he was just closing out really late. He was at one pass away it was one pass away closing out, and then he got easily driven by. So we can start talking about Pickett and Hunter Tyson if you want to, or where did you want to go with the
If I
defense?
want to. Do I want to? So, okay, let's talk about Hunter first because the defense is my main issue with him. I think both are not great defensively. We're not great defensively in this game, and I think Hunter had some real deficiencies that concerned me because they were exactly the same things that we saw in last summer league, where he doesn't have the best lateral quickness, and especially when he's closing out, he's just giving up blow by after blow by. And you were the one that pointed out him just kind of being out of position that made that even worse.
Yeah.
So when he's kind of sometimes like ball watching some or whatever, he's like slightly out of position, or the defender is able to like drift and just get past him. So when they get the ball, they're able to attack very quickly. And it was almost a guaranteed layup whenever Hunter's defender got the ball in a closeout situation. That was really tough because again, it was the same stuff we saw last summer. I don't think I saw any improvements. And in fact, I think he looked worse than in any single defensively in any single summer league game that I remember from last summer. So that's definitely a problem.
Yeah. He said after the game that he didn't think it was his best game. I don't know how he phrased it exactly, but he was saying like I could do everything better. It wasn't that great of a game for me. He hit it. I don't remember how many points he had or
He
what,
had
but he
15
hit.
points.
Okay.
He was 2 of 6 from 3, not amazing, not terrible.
Okay.
4 of 10 from the field. Definitely didn't look as comfortable out there as I expected him to, given how comfortable he looked basically from jump in Summer League last year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of fouling happening. We had a tiny Summer League
Mm,
team, and I didn't love the defensive scheme given the personnel, but I understand they were trying to evaluate the individual defenders and in these different situations. And I think in terms of the defense, Hunter gets an F for this game, and so does Pickett.
yeah, both of them were. Pickett was -18 and Tyson was -22
Yeah,
on the game in a what was it, 10-point loss.
it was tough. And, we were giving up rebound after rebound. But, I mean, before we move on to the centers, which are more, or the front court, I guess, which are more responsible for those rebounding responsibilities, we got to talk about Jalen Pickett. And, well, why don't you tell us what you saw when you looked at the highlights for this game?
Yeah, I was like looking at the highlights, and before I went to like the full game highlights or looked at the defensive highlights and seeing how the Clippers were scoring and how we looked on defense, it's mostly like Nuggets offensive plays that were good.
Yeah.
There was like no Jalen Pickett in that package, I would say. Almost there was one
Was it
like
like a
kind of
pass?
finish
Oh, yeah, the one
inside that
layup.
he
Yeah.
kind of like put up and in that was cool. But yeah, just a lot of absence from Jalen Pickett.
I felt really bad for Jalen Pickett in this game. There are two parts to this because one, I think that it seemed clear that the directive from the team was for him to get on ball reps for Julian and for Trey
Mm,
Alexander, who we'll talk about in a bit, as often as possible. So a lot of the time, he's initiating the offense, especially in like a rebound and go situation. He's like looking for Julian, looking for Trey, and giving the ball up to one of those guys and letting them run the offense, which didn't look amazing because neither of those guys are really point guards, but it was clear the team wanted them to get those reps and for them to be able to evaluate how they look in that context. Whenever Jalen was running the offense, it just looked he just looked really limited. He wasn't able to create separation from his own defender. He wasn't able to get close enough to, to basically the side of the court where they're trying to score in order to pass effectively and initiate their sets. He's clearly not like a scorer.
yeah.
His shot form is like whatever, but he's also just missing a lot now, and want to start to see some of that, especially as off ball as he was in this game. His catch and shoot opportunities were important and he wasn't really able to capitalize on them. And again, when he's not able to establish separation from defenders, when he's on ball trying to score either in the paint or mid range, whatever, when it comes to the step back or trying to go for like a floater, it was just like really tough where I was like, I never felt like the ball was going to go in whenever he was taking a shot.
Yeah. It is weird because these teams aren't constructed with like the principles of roster construction you're used to. It's a summer
Right.
league team. You're trying to get your guys in there and get them some experience.
Right.
like you said, he's coming in trying to pass to Julian or whoever. It's hard to sometimes separate the individual from like the team when some of these
Right.
things are awkward.
Yeah.
But I feel like it might be fair to like say
Blame the
of
point guard for the way the offense looks.
yeah.
Yeah. And like, look, one thing is, my problem isn't his process either.
Yeah, because sometimes he shows like signs of like, yeah, he has vision. Like I feel
Sure,
like he can know the game.
I just
but
don't. I'm really concerned that he just doesn't have the athletic tools necessary in order to like realize that on an NBA floor, because he's not able to do it in summer league,
right.
right? And it's not like the Clippers had any like particularly good defenders. They were just like kind of pesky and like athletic guys. They were just dudes.
Like you were saying, like on the Nuggets defensive end, they were getting kind of like bullied and pushed around. And,
Yeah, for sure. Everyone was getting bullied and pushed around by the Clippers. They had all these slashers. I'm like, man, our team could really use a slasher. But yeah, that's how I feel about Jalen Pickett right now, which is just not good.
Yeah.
Which doesn't bode well for the ball handler situation.
I was just hoping that one of Pickett or Tyson would look like competent, because those are like the two spots that we gave that's kind of frustrating all fans. It does not look like great decision making from Calvin Booth, and you just hope one of them looks like something that we can spin this into a positive. I never thought Jalen Pickett was a realistic option coming into this season to be like some kind of backup point guard, and we still haven't had any news on Russ or who we're getting to be a potential backup.
It feels like the Nuggets, the Summer League Nuggets, we're just all like trudging through Nug life right now. We're all in the groups of death.
Well, I guess we will spin. There's one positive that Jokic was amazing in his Olympic game, which we're going to do later. But that was like, I was kind of on the high of that amazing performance.
Yeah, that game happened. This was on Friday. And then Friday night was the Summer League game. And we had the game, we got the loss, we got the news about DaRon. And it was like, oh my gosh, what a whirlwind. Like, can we just have one good day?
Everyone was joking, like, Dynasty's back. You know, like, Jokic is a god.
It might still be back. But
it might still be back.
We need some ball handling.
Yeah, I was joking. The project part might be on hold.
But let's just like quickly touch on PJ Hall. He was not Mo Wagner, contrary to what I suggested he could be on DNVR. I don't know how he's going to look the rest of Summer League, but he did not look great in this game. He definitely struggled in the ways that one would predict going to the next level, which is, you know, he doesn't have the same size advantages that he did at the college level. So when he was facing bigger, more athletic guys, it was tough for him to sort of establish that, like, assert that dominance. We saw him make a couple of, like, big plays, especially toward the end of the game, grabbing some important offensive rebounds, that sort of thing. But he didn't grab a single defensive rebound all night. Not good for your starting center in Summer League. And yeah, it was just like Mo Wagner would never. So I'm sure that PJ Hall is going to want to bounce back from this game. And I'm going to want him to, because I want at least our G League team, since he's going to be on a two-way contract, to have a decent center. We're going to see what happens with that.
Who knew decent centers are like truly the unicorns?
To find. Oh my gosh, that's why centers got so paid this summer.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the other bright spot of Summer League, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Trey Alexander.
Yes. He was pretty awesome. He had a little mid-range pull-up. He had just like a quick release on the three that I didn't think he would shoot, and he just did, and it went in.
Catch and shoot. He actually, in my opinion, he had the most like undefined role in the entire team when you think about it. Because there were other guys coming off the bench whose names I don't know. And they're just there like playing for an NBA contract. They don't even know if they're playing to try to get on the Nuggets, because there's scouts from other teams like at all of these Summer League games. And they're just there like trying to do whatever they can to. And so besides those guys, Trey had, I think, the least defined role. And he, in my opinion, looked like the most comfortable guy on the floor, particularly offensively, because he comes from Creighton, this system that they play a lot more sort of like random read and react basketball, giving up the ball quickly if you don't have anything, and then getting it back after you think that you're able to create an advantage and that sort of thing. And the offense was in chaos for most of this game, like we've alluded to or said forcefully. But Trey looked calm.
Yeah.
And he never looked like rushed. There was one like crazy pass that I thought was like, what did he just do? When they grabbed, I think he forced a turnover, or the team did, and the ball gets deflected to him, and he just like heaves it forward. And it's all like right on target for Hunter running down the court to get the dunk. And I thought that pass was crazy until I saw that it was on target because he had a defender like right in his face trying to like stop him from advancing the ball like that. I was way more. I was like excited about Trey going into summer league, but I was like really impressed with what I saw. He had in 25 minutes, he had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists to 1 turnover. So he was just productive. He was just doing stuff. He had a steal, like I said as well. He had some like bully ball moments too, like where he just like initiated some contact and just like buried this guy under the rim to get a layup. And I don't think I have to look up which Clipper it was. They're not small. Like all of the Clippers guys were pretty athletic.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see. Trey also did get bullied a little bit on defense too. He's the smallest guy on our team. He's like 6'3", 190 pounds, at least at the combine. And he actually started off the game pretty slow. Like I was pretty concerned how uncomfortable he looked like in the first quarter. But as soon as like the second quarter started, because he's coming on this like bench stint, like he just looked really comfortable and started with that pull-up 3 in transition.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
I know.
Are we cooking? Or
we were.
Is CT Fazio cooking?
Yeah, shout out to CT.
Oh my gosh.
We were joking about how early he was on Trey Alexander. So when we got him and he was talking about how good he actually was, it was not a fluke because he was really on top of it early in the season. I just loved seeing how versatile he was doing different things on offense.
Yeah.
Just like a mid-range or a pull-up or a transition and he looked pretty like composed, I would say, for Summer League, because we even joked about how frantic the game can look for Summer League, and people are all trying to make a play and like make a statement and like, you know, pretty like erratic on like their closeouts or trying to do a blow by contest. You know, they're kind of jittery.
Yeah, on both ends of the floor, the whole game is very erratic.
And he just like looked like a hooper. He just like looked
he looked like a hooper.
He just looked like he just belonged out there. He just belongs on a basketball court. Like, I don't know. It's really exciting, and it's like I'm trying not to overreact.
I know.
It wasn't like it was a 30-point game with like high usage.
But he had like low usage, and he made the most of what he had.
Exactly.
Right? So
Coming
that
off
was
the bench.
Very encouraging. I thought Trey just made the most of this opportunity, and I'm excited to see what he looks like moving forward in Summer League because, you know, he's on a 2-way contract right now. But the Nuggets have the option of possibly converting that to a standard deal depending on the situation with our roster spots as the season progresses or as the off season progresses. I think that he was our second best player in this game, particularly offensively.
And to your point about like the Creighton offense and the the randomness and not running enough sets, it is like kind of perfect for Summer League in a way where it's like you're pretty disorganized and you just gotta like kind of create something.
Like
and
you almost wonder if he was in a more organized offense, like would that actually like hinder him? I don't know.
Yeah,
but we heard a lot of good things about Trey coming from Malone in particular in the Summer League practice media last week. And so we know Malone is at least intrigued by Trey. So I think that he was probably pretty happy with what he saw in his last game. Trey actually closed this game. He did come off the bench, but he closed this game because DaRon went out with the injury. I'm curious to see if that's a lineup that they start with next time, or, you know, does Trey still come off the bench and they kind of try to fit in by positions, and then maybe when Julian gets shut down for the rest of Summer League, Trey enters the starting lineup.
Yeah.
I just want to see more from him. I'm curious.
I think I'm the most excited about him probably besides Strawther, just because it's Strawther and whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to move on to
Jokic. That was insane. That was so fun to watch. We hadn't had very frustrating series with the Wolves. It was kind of funny that was against Gobert again, but it wasn't. I don't think there was a super like head-to-head Jokic Gobert thing going on. It was more like Jokic Wemby going on.
So both teams decided to go like ultra double big, right? Because you've got Wemby at the 4 for Team France with Rudy at 5, and for Serbia you had Jokic at the 4 with Milutinov at the 5 for Serbia. In what universe? We saw this early on in the Nuggets, the Jokic era, where Jokic was starting alongside Nurkic, and he was playing the four, and it was like, this isn't working out because Jokic can't guard NBA fours. But now Wemby's over here, and he really is a 5, and he's playing the 4. I thought it was so. Honestly, it was cool and refreshing to watch these guys go at each other because you could tell. I posted this poll right before the game, about an hour or so before the game, asking whether people thought that Jokic was going to take this game seriously, because I think it was Team Serbia's third or fourth friendly game. Everyone thought he'd be coasting, but I thought he was take it seriously just because of national pride or whatever. But let me tell you, when I saw Jokic in this game, no matter how seriously I thought he was going to take it, I did not think he was going to come out with the level of competitive fire that he had in this game. I think Wemby just brings that out of him. We played the Spurs, was it 3 or 4 times last year? And yes, we lost the last game. It's all very sad. Devontae Graham, boo-hoo. Season's over. In every one of those games, Jokic was taking it to Wemby.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to.
Yeah.
But he does that. He takes that matchup personally, and Wemby does too.
I think there was in that first game versus Wemby, a little adjustment period where Jokic was kind of getting used to just what it was like to play against him. And then he kind of was fine. And then in the second game, he was
Wemby makes some adjustments too.
Yeah. And then he was kind of going to the floater and just shooting over him, and and the timing of it all was really nice, and he figured it out. This one, he was just being super aggressive and physical with him.
He picked up a couple of offensive foul calls.
Yeah, he was just I was
kind of surprised that those whistles were happening. Frankly,
I think he was he knows there's technically more physicality, and he was just I'm gonna push.
He's just sending a message, setting the tone real early in this game.
Send a message and push the boundaries and see what you can kind of get away with, and barrel into him, push him with your arm, do whatever. And I love the competitive fire from him. The step back 3, reverse layup and one.
Oh, the reverse layup and one.
Which was maybe an offensive foul. I was talking about that because he kind of extended a little bit.
Yeah, but whatever. It wasn't called. What a perfect game to watch as a palate cleanser for a Nuggets fan, before we
really
later get Summer League and all of that
The
nonsense.
vibes were very high. The hopes were very high.
The hopes are still high because reliving this game in my mind right now, I'm like, damn. We have the best player in the world on our team.
Yeah.
Bar none.
You have to just take it in and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Even if it's championship, we're all focused on that, but enjoy Jokic. It is kind of cool that we go from talking about Jamal to talking about Jokic, because that's really just what it is at the end of the day. If both of them are amazing, what else do you really need? You can get into the details. You can get into the details about who that is and how many, and we did lose KCP, but these guys are amazing. And I know Jamal's in a slump right now. Whatever, Jokic is looking like Jokic, and that's nice.
And that's the thing, because if Jokic doesn't look like Jokic, it's just over.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to see Jokic look like Jokic and be like, oh yeah, no, we definitely have the clear best player in the world on our team. It would be great if the jump shot came back consistently, he had that one step back 3, and that was nice. We'll see. We'll see how he looks throughout the rest of the Olympics and international play in general. I actually do have the Team Serbia preparation game schedule. They are playing Team USA on the 17th, and I'm really excited for that game. They're playing Team Australia actually on the 16th, so that's annoying. They have Team USA on a back-to-back for an exhibition game?
Damn, Adam Silver has gotten to the Olympic planners.
No, I don't think Adam cares. He just doesn't care about Team Serbia.
He just wants Jokic to always play the tough players on back-to-backs.
It's just Jokic is just playing the game on hard mode.
Yeah,
exactly. He's injure all of my teammates. Yeah. Give me back-to-backs in the Olympics. Don't give me a full off season for 4 years. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. There's even some plays where he maybe jumped the gun on the pass, or was a little too quick for his teammates, or he was ahead of the play mentally, and the timing was a little bit off, and his teammates didn't expect it and couldn't score.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started on Milutinov not being ready for that dump-off pass. That touch. That was a touch dump-off pass, and he somehow got it clean around Rudy, and Milutinov was just not ready for it. He did not look great in this game. But
Yeah.
actually, that would explain what happened in the second half, where I think both teams decided to change the rotations up a bit. So we got more minutes with Jokic at 5 and more minutes with Wemby at 5 in the second half. And Rudy was coming off the bench, so they started to stagger those guys a bit more. Same with Milutinov for Team Serbia.
Yeah, Rudy
And
got in foul trouble. Like
he did, but that didn't affect the rotation. Like he wasn't in foul trouble in the first half, but he did. He didn't foul out. Jokic actually fouled out because of his offensive foul. And it was actually on an offensive foul call that he fouled out of this game in the fourth quarter. And it was like Team Serbia starting to sell, but after a little bit, Micic decided to I don't know, make a shot. It was really funny because it was just a really bad sequence of plays for Vasilije Micic. And on one of the worst ones, the lead is dwindling and France is starting to come back and we're getting into clutch time. My recollection is that Micic missed a box out on Bilal Koulibaly on defense, and Bilal came out, got the putback. And then it was the next play down, he turns the ball over, and I was just oh my God, what is happening? And then I think they get a run out and a dunk. So Team France, I don't remember if they ended up tying the game. They just made it really close.
It got it close.
Yeah.
And then Jokic fouled out, and
Jokic fouled out.
There were some pretty good threes made by, I can't remember.
Micic made one. Bogey. Oh, Guduric.
Yeah.
Love the small forward. I love Guduric.
Three.
Yeah.
And then Micic had one where he kind of drove it into the paint, middle of the paint, swarmed, kicked it out.
Oh, it was Petrusev.
Yes.
Yes. Who, on a couple of possessions earlier, he fumbled a defensive rebound out of bounds, and then France got the ball back, and I forget if they got a layup out of it or a three. It was just another can you guys please stop selling this game?
It actually was quite shocking to watch the aggressive battle of on the glass in that game, and then look at the summer league game where there was no rebounding to be had.
Yeah, that was very different. Yeah, because Jokic is out there in an exhibition game, trying to trying for dear life to tap the ball out from Wemby's,
throwing people to the floor.
He
was just grabbing and just
he really was.
He didn't give a shit.
Just no, this is playing for your national team, Jokic. We're about to see the guy.
I loved it when he would get and ones and he was high fiving his teammates and the look on his face.
He had that there's this littlest smirk that he's trying so hard to suppress, and he's really good at it because if you're not looking for it, you don't see it, but it's right there and you can tell he loves this, and I love seeing him enjoy the game that much, enjoy the competition that much.
It's gonna be so fun to watch him, and I'm glad we got the Olympics this summer. So
let's talk a little bit about the Team Serbia standouts. We talked about Micic, and then he was kind of a disaster, but then he made a clutch three. That's something. Watching him here, I'm I don't know that he's the kind of ball handler that we need for the Nuggets.
Yeah.
But yeah. I thought it was interesting that Team Serbia decided to start Aleksa Avramovic over Micic. This is next to Bogey. So Bogey was going to start. He's the team captain. He's he kind of played point for them last summer. But Aleksa is really a defender.
Yeah, I liked him in the game.
I like him so much. I'm obsessed with this guy's on-ball defense. He's so pesky, and when he can also hit his shots and stuff like that. He's just he's Serbian Jalen Suggs in my head.
That's a good comparison. He was sick. I was really impressed.
I love him. I didn't like how they didn't start him in the second half. They started Micic, and I'm oh, stop playing around with things. Is just doing his thing in the coaching over there, and I don't want the Serbians to get mad at me for criticizing Pesic for his coaching in an exhibition game. It's whatever. Teams are trying different stuff out. I like that Bogey eventually got really aggressive in this game. I thought he was pretty passive to start. I don't know what that was about, because maybe it's just last summer he was team leader. He really was the guy. And, this year Jokic is back, and, they're trying to get other guys going and all of that. But I thought that Bogey was pretty passive in the first half. Second half, they really needed him, and he started to step up, and I was a fan. Love him. His process is great. He just is such a great everything for that team.
It's kind of interesting, though, because you'd think with Wemby and Gobert that it would be maybe a tough game for Jokic, because you'd have to be super physical to score and succeed.
Yeah,
so
they're so skinny. The reason the Rudy is tough on the Wolves is because Cat's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So it's not the same
Jokic
dynamic.
doesn't have a problem with Rudy. We saw
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
He does not have a problem with Wemby individually. Like, yeah, Wemby's gonna get blocks on him. He did in this
It's
game. He
just-
blocked, like, people call it the floater, but he was kind of going for the runner, and then Wemby blocked it. I
Yeah.
thought that should have ended in a jump ball because he didn't like
That's
block it
true.
out
I
out
thought
of his
that
hands.
too, but I don't know.
It was weird. It's like it's either a travel or a jump ball because Jokic went down with
They
the ball
called
in his
the
hands
travel.
after.
Did-
Oh, maybe they did call it a travel.
I thought
'cause
they
maybe
called it
France got the
travel.
ball. Maybe they did call it a travel, but I thought it should have been a jump ball.
Yeah, so did I.
Anyway,
Gobert and Wemby are kind of like the 1-2 for
Yeah.
defensive player of the year. So on paper, you're kind of, you're just like, whoa, this might be tough for Jokic.
whatever.
Obviously, Jokic is transcendent.
But
and
you could have a
proved it,
1-2
but-
of like Marcus Smart and Drew Holiday for Defensive Player of the Year, and they're not going to bother Jokic. Like, it's
Yeah.
the archetype of player, right?
Right. Well, you have to be smart and observant to think that. But I was just saying, on paper,
Yeah.
from a glance,
Yeah.
you might think that. So Bogey might need to take over and do some stuff. But, he let Jokic do his thing. So that was great.
Thought Goodrich was great in this game, particularly in the second half. And yeah, for Team France, I wanted to shout out the role players. I thought that Rudy, first of all, like, I barely noticed him in this game
Yeah,
on
I
either end of
agree.
the floor. Evan Fournier, though, FIBA Fournier, really annoying. Because he's like, oh, this guy looks like he can play basketball. He had some like pesky on-ball defense. He like forced a turnover on Micic, and I'm like, bro, you can't get ripped by Evan Fournier. What are we doing right now?
Not a good look.
And Nicholas Batum, the probably like highest on my list of like, besides Al Horford, of like should have been a Nugget and probably is never going to be a Nugget, is Nico Batum, because he just is a vet and he does everything on the floor. He was hitting like movement threes from the corner, and I'm like, this guy's serious right now. He makes post-entry passes. He uses his length on defense to get deflections and steals. He can make, inbounds passes without like turning the ball over necessarily and like all of that stuff. So he was great. He was doing all the things. He was probably the best at sort of helping Wemby navigate the minutes that had otherwise all bench players and all of that. So they're going to be just like, I can just see Batum and Fournier being a pain in the ass of the other teams in that group of death that France is in with Canada. I think it's them, Australia, Greece. Every team on that list wishes they had a Nico Batum. I can guarantee you
Yeah,
that.
that was pretty. I don't know that I was surprised, but there are just times where he's super good, and
He just like does all these little
Yeah,
things on the
exactly.
floor. That's what Derek White's going to be like when he's older, kind of thing.
he's kind of like that now in some sense.
Yeah, but he's like really athletic and is like, you notice
Yeah.
everything that he does. With Batum, like you
Right.
don't notice everything that he does, but it's
yeah,
all
playing
contributing
smarter and
positively.
not like harder necessarily.
Mhm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The funniest part for me was when it was John Hollinger and so I don't remember who else was on the call. I was watching
Yeah.
it on YouTube, and on the NBA channel, and he was like, "I think Evan Fournier would be a really good addition to the Nuggets." No. It's kind of funny that
I want Alexa Abramovich.
Yeah, I was
honestly.
thinking that. I'm like,
I've
get
been
this
saying that
dude.
for months at this point.
Get this guy. He's so good at defense.
I mean, honestly, he'd basically be Christian without. Well, I don't know. I don't know who's
How's
a more
his three
consistent
ball?
shooter. I don't really either of them like handling the ball too much. The
Yeah.
three ball is like your
Okay.
best kind of thing.
Mm.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how he looks this summer. I only got the World Cup sample last year to judge him by, but I'm excited to dig into these teams more when we get into our Olympic previews and covering the Olympics as they go on. But that was a really exciting game.
Yeah, it was really fun. But let's talk about our starting point guard because he played for Canada.
Yeah, he did play. Yes.
No
Team
less.
Canada, Team USA had their first. It was the first exhibition games for either team. I will say that both teams largely looked rusty as hell.
Yeah.
With very few exceptions. SGA is playing with Team Canada. They had Dylan Brooks, Lou Dort, Dwight Powell's the starting center, and Jamal, of course. And then Team USA had Drew Holiday, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, LeBron, and Joel Embiid. So let's talk about our starting point guard first and foremost. Not a good shooting night.
Yeah. Chemistry is a real thing in this Olympics where
Yeah.
it's going to affect teams who are going to go further, I believe, because, none of these guys play together all the time. And
Except SGA and Lou Dort.
yeah, yes, that's true. And
Can I
Ant
just-
was playing against Nikhil Alexander-Walker in this
That's
game, which was
true.
funny.
That's true. I will say I was a little bit more disappointed with Team Canada in this game than anything. Jamal's the only new member of the starting lineup, but I don't
Yeah,
think
'cause
he
didn't
wasn't someone that
play.
was trying to like soak up usage or anything and change the way that they play. So, but the fact that the rest of them had all played together last summer and still didn't look like they knew how to play together
I
was
think
weird.
we've been wanting Jamal to maybe add some off-ball stuff even on the Nuggets because his catch and shoot's really good. Like the
Well,
stats are really good,
I
but
think Jamal is good off ball, but we don't have any other ball handlers on the team at the
yeah, he
moment
can
to
at the
allow
moment.
him
Well,
to do stuff.
that's what I'm saying is like if we get that and he
Right.
could do that, that would be
Yeah.
really nice. So in like a vacuum on a team where we're not sure how their chemistry is right now with like SGA and Jamal and in this new configuration, it's going to take time. It was
Yeah.
the first game. You still hope that when he does get his looks, he's going to hit him and like look pretty good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really there.
Yeah.
How
Was
like
not.
concerned are you about like that poor shooting? Because we know he can do it. We know Jamal, but like
Right. Like, I want to see him make shots, but for the most part, I thought his process off ball was like pretty good. I think a lot of people were complaining because he was like standing in a corner at the beginning of the game, but Team Canada's like whole like team space and chemistry was off. And I think after that initial stint, Jamal was doing a lot more like movement off ball, trying to get open. And then you'd have situations where he was coming off a pin down, whatever, finds himself open, and then Dylan Brooks just decides to call his own number.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I just think that it's like a chemistry thing. I want to see him make the shots when he does get the open shots. So I want to see that. But more than anything, I just want to see like better from Team Canada because they're in the group of death. And if they play like that against anyone else
I
in that
know.
group, they're done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna admit I'm not like a super like Euro League international
Yeah.
basketball follower. Like I'm an NBA follower. So I have to like readjust my brain in a way where like I see the roster of Canada and I'm like, this isn't actually like that impressive to me. I'm like RJ Barrett, like
Right. Yeah.
Powell, like
Well, I mean, part of why it's not impressive for FIBA, by FIBA standards, at least offensively, is there aren't a lot of great passers on that team. Like Kelly Olynyk's the best passer on that team, and he is a really good passer. So it's not
hmm
no like down. I think that after him, it's Jamal. And then
yeah,
there's a steep drop off
very
actually,
steep.
because there were a lot of these passes that were made to either Jamal or somebody else on the perimeter that were just like these wild off target like kick out passes. They'd have to like run out to catch, and then by then, like Drew Holiday has recovered back to you, so
Yeah.
there's no advantage created. But you're right, like chemistry matters so much in this, and you're not impressed with the roster, but there are a lot of
Yeah.
good players
Well,
there.
yeah, there is, and that's what
It's
I was
just not Team USA.
Yeah, I'm used to looking at these NBA rosters and like this is a national team. It's these people coming together, play for their country. They have an MVP candidate level player in SGA on the team, which is great. Like every country would want a player who's that level. Jamal is a champion. He's a top 20 player, whatever. However, he used to be in the top 15. So it's like they have these great individual players. It's just about like now putting it together, and I think they've had success. So I'm not saying Team Canada as a whole is like doomed. But when I was looking at the roster, I was kind of like, I don't really believe that this team can, even maybe not make it to the semis, which kind of seems like maybe they're ceiling with what we're seeing from other teams.
Ooh, so you think they could get knocked out in the quarterfinals? I will say I could see that too, but it's not because of evaluating Canada's roster and their talent level. It's more recognizing how good other teams are, and they don't necessarily
Yeah.
have the same like chemistry deficit
Yeah.
that Canada seems to have right now. Whereas like Canada has the same chemistry deficit as Team USA, but they don't have that overwhelming talent advantage that
Right.
can make up for it.
They might, but it would take a like huge effort from like SGA
Yeah.
to just like take over a game or
I
something.
think that the country of Canada would be incredibly disappointed if they didn't.
Yeah, at least get to there.
I think they want a medal. Like, I
Yeah.
think if you're
Yeah.
Team Canada, if you're a Canadian like basketball fan, like you want Canada to medal at this competition because they do have the talent to do it. Although I do think that the one like major deficiency of this roster, besides the passing thing, but they can figure that out with more chemistry, is they don't have great bigs on this team, and a lot like so many of
Yeah,
these the best FIBA teams have like very skilled, very big centers that are probably going to take advantage of Canada, I'm curious to see how that ends up playing out because their group, I think France is the only like big team in that group, and I'm air quoting even though they have like probably the tallest aggregate front court with
Yeah.
Rudy and Wemby, but
Wemby.
they're not like, you know, back to the basket, like gonna bully you all the way centers, although Wemby has pride. Yeah, I think that the other thing with FIBA is that they have the shorter 3-point line and no defensive 3 seconds, which changes the spacing. It makes it easier to defend, especially isolations. We saw SGA struggle mightily in this game. A lot of people talking about Jamal, but you know, SGA went,
too.
I believe it was 3 of 10 in
Yeah.
that game. He was getting fully crowded in the paint, and I think he needs to work on not improving his passing vision, but just like you got to give up the ball faster and earlier when you see the help starting to come over, because that tight spacing in FIBA really, really incentivizes passing over anything on offense, because you have to work really hard and move the ball around a lot to create a good
Get
advantage
an opportunity.
on
Yeah.
offense. Yeah. Is it like, I have this like crazy idea because I think SGA is like the best guy on the ball there, but I also think that SGA is like the best slasher that Canada has.
Yeah.
And it's not that Jamal's great at creating advantages, but he can operate really well at a pick and roll on the ball, and I think he's a better passer than anyone else in the starting lineup. Is it like crazy to just get more time with Jamal on the ball and then let SGA operate off? Because if they're able to create it, SGA with an advantage is scoring.
Yeah.
Instead of having
That's true.
SGA have to create the advantage every time, especially because his best method of advantage creation is in isolation. That's how he operates in OKC. That's why the 5-out spacing is so important to them. But it's harder to do that with FIBA spacing. So actually, if you can get somebody else that's able to create the advantage, and it's not that Jamal's not good at isolation, that's not his thing, but he's a really good operator in pick and roll. I think he's a better passer than SGA is. If we can figure out ways to just get SGA the ball, maximize the talent
If you
there.
can free him up off ball, and if, you know, they're going to stay home, which they will, that's going to create some space too for stuff. Like even if they don't go to him. So I don't know. They got to try something. There's other exhibition games. They should give it a shot.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask you, how did you feel watching LeBron and Steph play together?
I actually felt pretty emotional about it.
Because were you like conflicted? Because like,
Yeah, I
you
was.
love LeBron, but you hate Steph.
Yeah. But it's like I am a little bit like there's some nostalgia there with the Cavs Warriors finals. And I know Nuggets fans, like, we don't like Californian teams for the most part, and especially the Lakers. And
The Warriors are also there.
yes, they're also there. But yeah, just seeing them together and thinking of those times. And I know like LeBron has been, what word do you want to use? Glazing Steph? Brown nosing Steph? Giving him his respect, giving him his flowers, whatever you want to use.
Like giving him compliments.
Yeah, but it's heavy. And I'm
Like
like,
when?
oh, like the past like 4 years or
Oh,
whatever,
okay.
you know, just like he's been
Long
like,
term.
Steph's so good. Like, I would love to play with him. He changed the game, all that,
Yeah.
which is true.
It
But
is
like,
true.
it's LeBron's like corny, manipulative
Sure.
little like game that he plays.
It's interesting then that
Yeah.
earlier this season they talked about how like after the trade deadline, all that I think it was
Yeah.
Ramona Shelburne piece came out that Golden
Exactly.
State was like inquiring about Lakers, like
I've-
would LeBron be interested in it? And all that story revealed that his camp said he was not interested in leaving the Lakers, all of that stuff. Which, you know, maybe that's what was said, maybe it wasn't, but I haven't seen anything come out to like refute that telling of the story that would, you know, benefit any one of these three sides, LeBron, Lakers, Warriors. So I don't know, like, do you think LeBron actually wants to play with Steph like in the NBA?
I think LeBron definitely wants to play with Steph, but I think that he knows that he would get a lot of criticism, like if he had to go to the Warriors. At this point, though, like it's been far enough and he's old enough that if he did it, it might be a little understandable because the Warriors are on like a huge, like Clay just left, for example, so that would help. It would be cool to see them play together because they were like the two kind of guys during that little stretch.
That'd be so weird.
And it would be fun to see them play, and like they actually do kind of complement each other, and like
I mean,
they're both really smart.
They're like the perfect
Yeah.
pairing almost. Like
And
the
that's,
only
like-
more perfect pairing would be like Jokic and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. But like LeBron always needs like sharpshooters.
Or like
and,
Jokic and LeBron.
ooh, yeah, that'd be cool too. I've always said the Lakers are kind of like an old, reliable brand, like business that's been around for a while
Yeah.
that's like failing now.
Right.
And the Warriors are like the Silicon Valley, like boom business that's like super powerful. And they need to absorb the old brand and merge and come together because
To
the
prop them
perfect
up.
point. They need to like become one team and then they'd be
Right.
okay, but they're not. So whatever. They can just not be good this year, and that's fine with Nuggets fans. But it was just kind of cool from a basketball perspective. Don't like crucify me for
No, crucify
appreciating
him.
it.
It'll be fun for me to watch.
All right, well, our last segment of this episode to celebrate 300 subs, which I hope by the time we post this, we're at 400 subs, and we're just like
Ooh,
behind.
yes. That
Yes,
sounds great.
reminder to subscribe again, please. We're not that annoying.
I am.
We wanted to celebrate like 100 subs, and we wanted to celebrate 200 subs, and we just kind of got behind. But here we are
The
on
off season
300
has been
subs.
way busier than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Basically.
There's so many angles you can take
Yeah.
with it. So it's been awesome doing the off season. So thanks to everyone who's been listening and like subscribing and liking the videos. It means a ton to us, and we love talking to you. So for this like really weird segment, because what's in a game comes from Romeo and Juliet. What's in a name, said by
Yes.
Juliet, William Shakespeare. We do love
It was
like
Juliet, wasn't it?
medieval things. We love
We love fantasy
fantasy
and
and
like
plays. Like we just went to a show
yeah.
today. We're gonna combine a weird segment where we're gonna take the Nuggets starting lineup and try to come up with a character from the Game of Thrones universe
Yeah.
and match them to like their equivalent
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
If you've not seen Game of Thrones,
Or House of the Dragon
Or-
up until season 2, episode 4.
which is literally all the episodes that are out,
Yes.
then there might be some spoilers. So watch the show, then come back and look at this.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to miss this segment.
And we'll put that at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Jokic, I went with Jon Snow because
Oh,
he is that strong, silent type, reluctant hero, but he's the chosen one.
right.
Prince that was promised-ish, even though he's not the one that kills the White Walkers. He has to slay the beasts, and he just has to go through all this terrible stuff. And Jokic is seeing teammates go down, and he's got these really humble beginnings and all of that. Obviously, John turns out to be a Targaryen. For all we know, Jokic is a Targaryen, and that's why he's so awesome.
Jokic is a Targaryen.
Right? I saw him spitting fire in that game against Wemby. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
it really was a flamethrower.
So if he's not a Targaryen, he's definitely a dragon. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Jon Snow. I just think it's the best character, personality match and the story. Who is Jokic for you?
I guess just to be different, I'm gonna get cooked in this one, but
Oh my gosh.
I'll go. That's a very good answer, but I don't want to say the same just because it's not as fun. I'm gonna go with Arya actually.
Oh,
because
interesting.
Arya was painted in a role from the beginning as a young lady. She never wanted to be a proper lady. She didn't want to be the
Yeah.
role that everyone was prescribing for her.
Totally fair.
She went away, got some sick training, came back, and was the MVP and did kill the White Walker.
That's true. So we're both choosing the prince that was promised.
Yeah.
Arguably.
Yeah, we are. We just don't know what happened with that
Yeah. We
necessarily.
just know that they're the heroes.
So I'll go Arya. I know it's a weird comparison, but
Yeah. Okay. So next, let's do AG, who
Okay.
I think is pretty tough because he's so good. To me, AG's defining character trait is that he's just so fundamentally good and you just want the best for him. But there are so few characters in the Game of Thrones universe for which that is true without them being somebody that just dies early.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
Oh man,
so this was tough for me.
trying to think.
But do you want to go first?
No,
No? Okay.
I'll go first on the next one.
So, maybe this is terrible, but I went with Ghost. That
Whoa,
is
wow.
Jon Snow's direwolf. Ghost makes it to the end of the story and is incredibly strong, loyal, basically Jon's right-hand wolf. And that is, to me, what AG is for Jokic. And I love animals, so I also want the best for Ghost, just like I want the best for AG.
I mean, is appropriate to pick a wolf when he has the whole the
He has that
the
dog
locker
in
room
him.
barks for him to
Because of
he's
the
a
dog biting
He
situation.
did get bit by a dog, so he's
Yeah.
kind of like a werewolf. You know what I'm gonna do for
I
AG?
will say.
I'm gonna say Bronn.
Oh.
Bronn.
Yeah.
Because
Huh.
he's like
Yeah.
Tyrion and like Jaime's right hand man. Like when they need some like shit done, the trash man
Yeah.
go and like assassinate the dude that you need to be taken out, and he's just like super skilled and like not afraid of anyone. He's just like he's dropping 50s
Yeah.
throughout Game of Thrones with lines and battles and stuff. He shot a dragon with a air like the bolt. That was
But
sick.
he's also like when you talk to him, he's like just a very like nice conversational
Yeah, sure.
guy. Too.
I'll take that
No,
comparison.
like I thought that's where you were going with this. Like, yeah, he's like the trash man, dirty work, like does all this
But
like
he's, like,
badass
classy.
shit. But he's also classy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Well, it's like AG's role on the Nuggets. He's called himself the
Exactly.
garbage man, so that's where I was going
That's
with
true.
that. Yeah.
That's true. This is the toughest one. This was the toughest one for me. Was Jamal.
Like I feel like you said John is Jokic. Maybe I could say John is Jamal, or Jamal is John.
Oh, interesting. What's the argument there?
Like
Is it just doing push-ups in the snow?
yeah. Ned Stark was training him. Catelyn Stark never really accepted him.
But who
I
is it
don't
that
know.
didn't accept Jamal?
Well, I'm just imagining his dad like putting him through these like rough little like exercises, and I mean I know it was all out of love and all that stuff, but and then Jamal's still like in the midst of discovering his like purpose, you know what I mean? And like John was always unsure of what his identity was,
Yeah.
and Jamal's like trying to become that like consistent player, and like he's been beyond the wall and won the championship, but
True.
what is his true like? Where's his real home at?
And like John was like basically supposed to die. Years
Yeah,
ago the
he came back
ACL would
to
have
life.
been
John comes back to
like
life.
career ending, but he came back and John comes back to life. Does Jamal have plot armor? That'd be awesome.
I hope he does. I mean,
I hope Jamal has some plot
he
armor.
did tear his ACL, so
No,
that's
but
not
like
great
he
plot
came
armor.
back from that.
Yeah,
That's the point. He came back from it.
he's from the north.
Yeah,
He's from
that's
Canada.
true. He is from the north.
Never made an All-Star game. Not a true Stark.
Yeah, true. Or like a true Targaryen because he wasn't like raised with the rest of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's who I'm gonna go with, I guess. All right, what are you going with?
Okay, so for me, I had to go with Sansa Stark. Now,
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of a strange comparison because when Sansa starts off her tale, she's this like very girly girl. She wants to live out basically the princess fairy tale, marry the prince, do all of the proper things to like help the family. She's very critical of Arya and all of that.
Right.
But when we get into late Sansa, she's gone through so much just shit that she has this like no bullshit, like you don't want to mess with me because I'm ready to get into the political mud to achieve my ends. And the same energy that Jamal brings to a basketball game for the Nuggets is the energy that Sansa had when she fed Ramsey Bolton to his dogs.
Oh my god.
Like in that situation, Jamal is both the dogs and Sansa.
Like when the Wolves were booing him and he had that amazing game against them on
true.
one calf.
That's true. I was like, is this what they're doing today? Like, we got this.
Sansa's just like waiting to get a revenge, basically.
Yeah, she's like ultimate like revenge fantasy type character when you think, especially with like the Ramsey stuff, because like I think that's such a great revenge fantasy arc. Because
Yeah.
Ramsey's just like one of the most vile TV characters that's ever lived. Not just because of like his individual actions, but everything that he sets into motion, and his intent is just like pure shittiness.
Yeah.
Like he's got like one of the blackest hearts of any character that I've
I
ever
know.
like witnessed. And usually that's a bad thing, but I like how he was written, even though he's literally just like all bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts out, they're like, oh, he's just like this because he's a bastard. But then you contrast him to Jon Snow, and it's
Who's
like,
a
no,
good
that's
bastard.
not really an excuse to be like the worst, one of the worst characters in like all of television history. But anyway, Sansa gets to have her revenge, and by the end of the show, she's, playing all of the Machiavellian games. Nobody wants to mess with her. She doesn't have that same like sweet, soft, disposition anymore. You're not going to walk all over her. And for better or worse, nobody wants to mess with her. Yeah. And that's kind of Jamal too.
That's a good point. So who's who got
next is MPJ.
Right.
And yeah, you go first.
I'll go first since you went first on the other two. I haven't done a House of the Dragon character yet, so I'm gonna go with Daemon Targaryen for MPJ because
interesting.
They're both really skilled, and Daemon is like an up and down character where he has his moments.
That's true.
But he kind of can get into trouble with things that he says. So MPJ has done that, obviously.
But Daemon gets in trouble with things that he says on purpose. He's trying to get into trouble. I don't think MPJ is thinking about it that hard. Yeah,
MPJ actually is kind of like a good little golden boy in some senses, where he says some stuff, but he's kind of sweet. You can't help but kind of,
Well, I think you were talking about like when Daemon takes the crab eater.
Yeah. So he storms the beach and takes on the crab eater alone. And I was thinking that was like the Lakers series because he was like, people were saying he was maybe our best player in that series, and LeBron called him a laser on Mind the Game podcast.
And it was like a one-man show almost. Well, you don't expect Daemon to just like charge in there with his dragon. And I didn't expect to have a playoff series where MPJ like literally saves us because like no one could shoot.
Yeah. Also, you have that MPJ was like a top prospect once, and he was... Daemon was in line
would have been the heir if Viserys hadn't, remarried, had another child, and then chosen Rhaenyra.
Yeah. So it was almost like he could have been king, he could have been at the top, but then he had to just accept his role for what he was.
But unlike MPJ, Daemon's actually struggling to like fully accept his role now,
true.
right?
And MPJ's pretty much embraced it. Yeah. So it's not perfect.
I think people don't appreciate MPJ enough.
That's true.
That's what this comparison is.
And maybe fans don't appreciate Daemon enough.
I don't know. I think fans appreciate Daemon.
He's pretty well liked.
Okay, so my MPJ comparison is actually not that nice, despite my thinking that he's underappreciated. I went with Oberyn Martell.
Oh yes.
And it's because he is, like Daemon, incredibly skilled, such a good fighter. But when he faces someone bigger and badder and he fucks around a little bit, he just can't. You can't beat that level of physicality.
He's risen to the occasion.
And like Martell, I want MPJ to like live to the end of the story. And Martell did not, but I wanted him to. I really liked his character. I thought he was so like cool and flashy and skilled. And you could see like, oh, this would be really, and just like every character that seems like interesting, nice and cool that you'd want to have around in Game of Thrones, they killed them off.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be the case.
I like that you're making the comparison, but then like wanting their stories to like change.
Yeah.
You're like rewriting Game of Thrones history.
Yeah. Because why not?
Cool. I was thinking about choosing him for MPJ too, because I was trying to think of like a younger, like skilled person.
That's right.
And he's skilled.
Because you told me that you wanted to do Oberyn Martell, and I was like, what? Wait, I want that one. And I didn't know what your answer was going to be, but the skilled nature of his abilities and his talent and his gifts, it's like hard to not make the comparison to MPJ.
That's a good one.
All right, so I will go first for our fifth and final starter, which is Christian Brown. Mike Malone has made comments about like, oh, the fifth starter slot is not set and people will be competing, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be Christian Brown. It's going to be Christian Brown for the vast majority of the season, if not the entire season. And for me, Jace Velaryon is the guy.
Whoa.
I finally get to my House of the Dragons character.
So this is the oldest son of Rhaenyra?
Okay, that's correct. Jace is currently in a role where he is sort of this like strong, silent type as the oldest son. He has this like really important role for Team Black, right? He's the heir. He's Rhaenyra's heir, and he's also got a dragon. He's going to be presumably one of the important fighters in this war because he has a dragon. But he's also been pretty like relatively restrained to this point in terms of like his input. And with him, the comparison to Christian comes more in what I think Jace is going to be doing next, which is being more vocal and being more involved in like maybe criticizing some of Rhaenyra's moves. Like we saw like last week, he was already ready to, speak out of turn a little bit to criticize Rhaenyra for basically being gone for however much time.
He had an attitude in that scene.
He totally did. And I kind of want that from Christian because I want him to be like vocal on defense and like calling his teammates out and all of that. But you can tell that both of them are player or character that really want to play their role and be like the dutiful son or the dutiful role player right now. But they're both so important to the teams around them that they're going to have to start like making tougher decisions and being more, I think, assertive.
And they're both being like trained and like they're on the younger side. And yeah, that's a good one too. And imagine Christian with Jace's hair.
Oh my gosh.
Like the season 2 hair that's like long and curly.
I think that's bad basketball aura. I love that hair on Jace, but I don't think it's ideal for NBA basketball.
Okay, well, my character for CB has very short hair because I picked Gendry Baratheon, who is a normal guy, like just a blacksmith character at the beginning who helps Arya. He's good-natured, and but it ends up that he's related to the king. And not that he will rise up and like actually get the throne because there's too many like obstacles in the way. He's not powerful enough and he's still the bastard. But he kind of like all of a sudden quickly gets his, put into this tough position, let's say, where people are like hunting him because he's related. He's the bastard and Joffrey's trying to kill all the bastards. And now it's like he is going into the starting role, and I hope he's not going to be like the punching bag, Joffrey going after the bastard, so that there's no more like.
Is Joffrey the fan base?
Joffrey is the fan base.
I don't want Christian to be the punching bag either. No, I can see that too. Hopefully, I thought Gendry like pretty much rose to the occasion there.
Yeah, he does.
And I hope Christian does the same thing. I think Gendry has a little bit more like fire to him even at the beginning. Like he's very like self-assured. And I don't think that Christian isn't that, but I think that like certain moments come out where you're like, okay, you look a lot less confident than I think you should be in this situation.
Yeah.
Given your like abilities.
Yeah, I think it's just like he's the quintessential, well, I don't know. I'm hoping he's the quintessential role player. That he gives us what we need, but he has like king's blood, He could be special, some like
because
he's
got all of that championship pedigree.
Yeah,
that's the king's blood.
He's got all the gold around him,
Yeah,
that's true.
He took the loss the hardest in Game 7, at least outwardly. This is the reports from the locker room, and I'm going to bring that up every chance we get because I do think it's noteworthy that somebody who's so used to winning took it so so hard when they lost. When presumably the players in that locker room don't think they should have lost that series.
Yeah. And Vogt talked about on your episode that you were on with them about how he wasn't getting back to his brother after the loss for like multiple days.
Yeah,
Just kind of
Parker
sad,
said.
Yeah.
You guys should check out that episode of DNVR.
Yes. If you like what's in a game, you have to. It's your obligation.
Your duty.
Yes.
Well, this was really fun. Well, I have been very, I'm very pleased that we have over 300 subscribers to this show. I am excited to keep growing it. I definitely never expected to be in this position like 6 months ago when before you
we even started.
Before you asked me to start this podcast with you. It's been incredibly fun. The community has been awesome, and I'm just excited to just like keep growing with the fan base and following this team and following, other aspects of the NBA too. And we're going to get to, keep doing that as the summer progresses as well.
Yeah. Honestly, thank you to every subscriber, to anyone who's taken the time to just hit the subscribe button and let our videos come into your feed. It means the world to Grace and I. We just love being in the Nuggets community and NBA community and anyone who wants to talk about it. And so we love talking with you. Thank you so much.
So a couple programming notes. We're going to be, putting out segments and drips next week, but we're taking next full week off for travel, so we won't have an episode until right before the Olympics. We're going to have Vojislav Medic on to talk about an Olympic preview. We're also going to use that time to review the rest of Summer League, so we'll talk about maybe some improvements that we saw from the guys that struggled a little bit at the beginning of Summer League, and see who decides to step up to fill the shoes of DaRon, who unfortunately had to go out. really excited for that pre-Olympic episode for sure. And I'm excited for the rest of our off-season content as well. But in the meantime, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell, like Will said, anything to make sure our videos make it to your feeds. Share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. Tell them to hit the like button and not the dislike button. Yes. All of those things. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Amazon Music, anywhere you get your podcasts. And hang out with Will is fun too.
Yeah, in person
episode. To my surprise.
Who knows the next time we'll be in person, but
yeah,
you never know.
We don't know.
But honestly, it's easier almost doing whatever. They don't need to know the background.
They don't need to know all the work we're allowed to do to set this up.
Yes.
Yeah, but I really appreciate it.
But it was awesome.
And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.